Hey folks, this is my second video on the 7 deadly sins. If you didn't see the first one, you can click on the link right over here and that'll take you to the original video you can watch. If you don't want to watch that whole thing, you can get a quick summary right here. The 7 deadly sins were originally the 8 deadly temptations. They were first developed by Evagrius of Pontus in the 4th century, trying to help monks and Christians learn how to deal with the temptations that are going to hit them as they go about their Christian lives. Originally, pride and vainglory were separate things. They got merged into one. We also took a look at wrath and envy. This time, we're going to take a look at sloth, greed, lust, and gluttony. So let's get started. We're going to start with sloth, and sloth is kind of a strange one. More than any of the others, sloth has been changed over the years. Even more than pride and vainglory being glued together, sloth became something completely different than what originally Evagrius intended. When we think of sloth now, we pretty much think of laziness, of not doing what it is that you're supposed to do. And that is a sin. The book of Proverbs talks about it all the time. The lazy man, the sluggard, the sloth. It uses various different terms to get at this person who just doesn't bother to actually take any action. The solution, of course, is to take action. And in some ways, it doesn't even matter what action you take, just so long as you do something. Once you've gotten started, once you've gotten moving, you're out of the house, you've engaged in the world in some way, the inertia should carry you forward and you'll be more motivated to actually do the things that you should be doing. Of course, there is an other side to sloth. There is workaholism. And the Bible doesn't have a lot to say about workaholism, but the Bible does have a lot to say about rest. The Bible specifically talks about taking a Sabbath. And the book of Hebrews chapter 4, it's an entire chapter about rest, about how ultimately our work is supposed to be leading us to the ultimate rest. So rest is really important. Workaholism isn't good, but sloth isn't good either. But I said that sloth isn't originally what Evagrius was getting at. What Evagrius was getting at is something called acedia. There really isn't a direct translation for this word. Probably the best that you can come up with is boredom. Maybe antsiness, maybe desiring something to change, something new, an itch for novelty. See, this temptation came up because these monks were spending the day praying and meditating and reading and thinking and reflecting and doing all these things for hour and hour and hour. And they called acedia the noontime demon because right around noon or early afternoon, a lot of monks would be like, "Oh God, I'm so sick of this, please. I can't take this anymore. I have to do something else." And they just wanted something to change. They wanted something more interesting. They wanted something different. And how many of us have not fallen into this temptation even now? We get bored. We want something new. We want something to change. Well, here's how you deal with this. And you probably aren't going to like the answer because I don't usually like the answer, but I know it's the right answer. The solution to acedia is to be bored and to let boredom work. Well, boredom begets creativity. You find something to do. You create something to do. You let boredom spark creativity. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. I'm convinced boredom is the weird uncle. It makes you think of new and interesting things just to get something going on. Boredom is actually really useful if we let ourselves feel it. So here's your solution to boredom. Feel bored and see where it takes you. I promise you it's not always going to be pleasant, but sometimes it's going to lead to something fantastic. Let's move on to gluttony. Now, when you think gluttony, you probably think about scarfing down massive plates of food, maybe these giant feasts. Here's the thing, gluttony is not about food. Not necessarily. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. See, gluttony is really about emptiness. Gluttony is about feeling a hole inside of you and trying somehow to fix it, trying somehow to just fill up whatever that empty space is. And that empty space could be hunger, but it could just as easily be depression or boredom, going back to sloth and acedia, or it could be loneliness. Whatever it is that makes you feel like there's a hole inside you, that's going to give you this desperate cry to fill it up. And you could use food to fill it up, and a lot of us do. How many of us have not gone to the refrigerator to see, is there something else there? But it doesn't have to be food. You can try and fill up that hole with entertainment, or you can fill up that hole with shopping, or work, or sex, or even exercise. Whatever it is that you do to try and fill up that empty space in you, that's gluttony. That's gluttonous. So what do? Well, just like with acedia, you learn to feel the hole. You learn to feel that emptiness, because that emptiness is going to tell you something about yourself. Just trying desperately to throw things in there, it's like putting square pegs into round holes, or even worse, it's like trying to throw things into a black hole. It doesn't fill up. So you need to find something else. You need to figure out what that hole is about, and the only way that you can figure out what that hole is about is by allowing yourself to feel it. So the solution to gluttony is to feel empty. That's part of what fasting is about. It's about learning to feel that emptiness, and what is it like to be empty, and what is it like to need, and how long can I go without having something fill that up? Feeling your need is really important. On the heels of gluttony, we get to lust. And just like gluttony is not about food, lust is not about sex. Lust is about pleasure, about desire, but it's about those things disconnected from other people or from implications. It's about, I want something and I don't care how it affects other people. I want sex, I do not care about the other person I'm having sex with. But it doesn't have to be sex, it could be about food. I want food and I don't care that the waitress is having a crappy day. It could be about fame. It could be about entertainment. Whatever it is, you're trying to use something. You're trying to make yourself feel good. You're trying to satisfy some desire, and the other people, or maybe the larger implications, are irrelevant to you. All that matters is feeling good. How do you solve lust? The solution to lust is love and caring about other people and caring about what's going to happen if I get my desires met? What's going to happen if I make myself feel good? Does that have consequences? Figure out what those consequences are. Figure out how it affects other people and care about those other people. That's the solution to lust. Finally, we get on to greed. And just like gluttony and lust weren't about what you thought they were about, greed isn't about what you think it is here. Greed, we think, is about money. And greed is not about money. Greed is about safety. Because people who are greedy, if they're gathering it just because, I love money and I don't care what matters, that's not greed, that's lust. But if people are just hoarding money, they're getting all this money because the idea of being poor is terrifying. Or the idea of having to deal with people and go through the actual proper channels, or doing whatever it is that not having money would give you. If you feel unprotected without your money, that's greed. But again, it doesn't have to be money. You can hoard all sorts of things. You can hoard belongings in general. That's why we have television shows about hoarders. You could use knowledge as a means of protecting yourself. Lots of people hoard information. Librarians and college professors are huge for this. But you could use food. You could even use attention. Whatever it is that you're trying to gather endlessly in order to protect yourself from feeling uncertain or feeling anxious or feeling unsafe. All of these things are greed. How do you deal with greed? You learn to take risks. You learn to trust God. You go out and you try something you think is going to hurt, and maybe it hurts, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's going to be okay. You do have God on your side. You have the God of the universe. You have somebody who truly, truly cares about you. If you trust that person, then maybe you can use that as your safety net, and not your money, not your information, not your attention. Maybe you can trust God. That's the solution to greed. I hope you've enjoyed this explanation of the 7 deadly sins. If you liked it, please hit the like button, and if you think I deserved it, I'd love it if you subscribed. That's all I got for today. I hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot.